Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, but this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. Sometimes when I'm reasoning about us, I know you got me, it's so effortless. Back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, but this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me?
Welcome, everybody. We are back with the FPV news for July 2nd, 2024. And we have a ton of news, don't we, Blunty? Because we've been
We
gone
do.
for like a month.
It's as if we left for a whole month,
Yeah.
and then we waited and got all the news together because that's what
But
happened.
the good news is that you'll get all the news in one place and our reaction to it. And say our reaction, you obviously have prepared, and I looked at the outline 30 minutes ago and am now ready to just shoot off my mouth.
All right, that sounds like another week with the news.
Like
right?
any good pair, right? You've got the play-by-play and you've got the color commentary.
Yes,
And I'm the color commentary.
Absolutely. Yes.
Escape in the Discord says a 2-hour news is demanded, and Escape might get it because we have a lot of shit. We're going to go as long as we need to go.
Depends on how long we ramble about topics, as we sometimes do.
Yes. And we're going to get right into it. Actually, hang on. It's so good to be back with you guys. Are you glad to be back with the news? Are you guys glad? Tell me in the chat, right? Are we good? Are we good? How are we doing? 183 concurrent viewers. That's a lot this early in the stream. I think people missed us.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Enough pandering. Let's get to the news. And we're going to start with a public service announcement, a little piece of information that we put right up at the front because we think it might affect you. And if it does affect you, it's kind of important. So what is the PSA? It has to do with the Skyzone goggles.
Yeah, the Skyzone 040 goggles. Just in case you got the 040 goggles or were considering the 040 goggles and resolution was for some reason part of that concern. Basically, the Skyzone 040 goggles have been adjusted
trying to find
And
the
they
040s to put on screen. Because Skyzone has sorry to interrupt you, Blunty. Skyzone has a shitload of goggles, and they kind of all look the same. There's the 04X. It's these goggles, right? The 040 Pro. This is the one you're talking about?
Yeah, like the cheaper SKU of the 04X. Sort of.
This is 360.
Sort of
Yeah, I was so impressed when this came out because it has basically very similar specs to the 04X, but it's cheaper. I like that, right?
Yeah.
So which spec is the relevant spec?
Okay, so yeah, this is, as you see here, resolution is 1280 by 720. And originally, these goggles were advertised and listed at 1080p. Even Crom in the chat says 040 Pros are the 1080p ones. Well, it turns out, and that's this reason for this PSA, is they are not 1080p. They made a mistake when they were speccing the goggles, and the panels can actually only drive 720p. So we're getting 720p to the panel.
So they were advertised as having a resolution of 1080p, and they do have a resolution of 1080p, but they won't actually display a 1080p signal. They just are sitting there with wasted pixels. That's the takeaway.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Wow.
Unfortunately, yeah, and that's confirmed from Skyzone. You did check your 04X, and they've been around for
Right.
long enough. Obviously, we probably would have heard about it, but yeah, those are correctly 1080p.
Yeah, so I have the 04X Pro or whatever, the Skyzone 04X, and I tested them on my laptop. They showed a 1080p signal. Everything was fine. So this only affects the 040, and it seems like some of the things they did to get the price down caused them to not be able to display a 1080p signal. So now we come to the editorializing. I'm going to take the position. I know your position. Your position is that this is bullshit. Am I right about that? Is that fair?
Yes. I mean, yes. You advertised something that you couldn't deliver, so there needs to be recompense. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I'm going to take the contrary position just for the sake of making it an interesting argument. And I'm going to say, okay, I get it. You wanted, like, what were you going to use this 1080p with? A Walksnail standalone video receiver? They output 1080p. Yes, they do. Okay. HD0? Yes, they have 1080p. Does the standalone receiver output 1080p? Not even sure.
Not sure.
My point is that most of what you're going to use that HDMI input for, it's going to be 720p. I fly Walksnail on 720p all the time anyway because you get better range than 1080p, and you can go to 100 frames per second. Can they do 720 100? Do we know?
That would be in. There's a spec sheet on their website.
If they only do 720 60, that's less compelling. Oh crap.
Oh, let's see. I think. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Do they do 720p 100 or only 720p 60? I guess we would have to look that up.
There's a chart. It says 60 FPS. Hold on. Let's see.
I know that the 04X will do 100 FPS.
Yeah, it's labeled at 60 FPS. The only HDMI that does 100 is the Sky 04X Pro. There's a chart on their website.
Okay, so you're giving up 100 frame per second at Walksnail, and you're giving up 1080p Walksnail. So you're going to be running at 720p 60 if you're using the Walksnail standalone receiver. That's kind of annoying because the 60 FPS is going to have higher latency and you're going through an HDMI input, which adds latency. You really want to be. So it seems like these are just a really good set of analog goggles. And the HDMI input is not ideal for use with digital systems, although it will work, just not at the full performance. Is that fair?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I understand where you're coming from, for sure.
Well, I know I've talked myself around to it being bullshit. I agree with you now, even though I was trying to be contrary. Because I was about to say, how often do you run a digital system on 1080p anyway? Unless you're using the DJI O3, which doesn't have HDMI output, so that's set aside. Walksnail and HD0, I'm always running them at 720p or with HD0, even 540p, because I want the low latency. But now I find out you can't have the low latency either. So basically, they're just a good set of analog goggles.
Yeah, I think the reason for that is because at some point, there are likely people who purchase this goggle based on 1080p being advertised, right?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah.
I think that's the issue. Is like they looked at the price point, they looked at the options, and they looked at the resolution of the screen, and they said, "Oh, 1080p OLED at this price point with these features and an HDMI in, that's enough for me to bite and buy the
Yes.
goggle."
So there, I won't even like argue for the sake of arguing. If you spent your money and were told that you were going to get a thing, and then it turns out you didn't get the thing, Cybertruck buyers, you know what I'm talking about, right? If you were told you were going to get a thing, and then you spent your money, and when the product arrived, you didn't get the thing, well, I wish Skyzone had as much devotion as Elon's does, because all the Skyzone, they would be like, well, it doesn't do 1080p, but I still love it. I love it. They're great goggles. I really love them. They're amazing. I mean, they don't do what I paid for, but, oh, they stopped working. I had to send them in for service. They'll be back in 4 weeks, but I still love them. Okay. Sorry. I couldn't resist.
All right. So I'm going to say what I think should happen. I don't know what's going to happen, and but one guy in the comments of the Facebook says he was offered $30 as compensation, or he sends back the item at his cost. So, to me, what you should actually be offering is ship back the item at their cost and just return the item for a full refund, depending on use time. I think there's some use time metric maybe you could use there. I don't know what the rules are, where they are and where they sold to. There's possible in the EU, false advertising means they have to refund them completely. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of laws they need to figure out and worry about. But I'm just saying, this is where I'd say, at least for US customers. And then, $30 seems a little low, but I mean,
it's 10%. It's 10%.
Yeah.
It's a little less than 10%. $36 would be 10%. I got to say, I mean, people lose their freaking minds over like a 4% off coupon. They're like, hey, you got any coupon codes? You got any coupon codes? You offer them a 4% coupon code. They're like, ah. So given a 10%, it's only $30, I agree, but 10% is a lot of people. Yeah.
I think if you offered to return for like on their dime, and then return for compensation, then or $30 or something, then that seems reasonable. But to say like, oh, we you can send it back at your cost for like a restocking fee basically, or shipping fee, and then I don't know.
Welsh FPV thinks my mic is a little hot. Sorry guys, we're still trying to figure out the audio situation. I'm gonna turn my mic down 1 dB. We're gonna see if that fixes it for anybody. Let me know in the chat if it sounds any better. Okay, so enough said about that. If you're going to buy those goggles, now you know what you're getting, and you can make an informed decision. I still think I use the Skyzone Sky 04X Pro as my daily driver analog goggles for the last 6 months or a year. I don't fly that much analog anymore, to be honest, but that's my goggle. I like it. I think it's a good goggle. If you told me you were going to give me a Sky 040 Pro as an analog goggle for $360, I would think that was a great deal. And I'd just use it as an analog goggle. But if you want it for the HDMI input, then no questions asked, you should get what you paid for. So, all right. Enough said about that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Next up, we've got our first official story of the week, and it's about BLHeli32. BLHeli32 shutting down.
Again, we've been gone for a month. Right after our last show, like a day or two after our last show, BLHeli32 put out a letter. And I've got that letter in the imager link here.
I'll get that up.
Can show people. Okay. And they basically put out a letter to say, we're shutting down BLHeli AS, which is BLHeli32's company. They're winding down business operations. They're claiming that it's based on a complex geopolitical landscape. Their programs and hardware being used in drones for warfare, including potential use in Russia. And they're quoting Norway restrictions and saying, the EU's legal framework causes them to not be able to do what they're doing anymore. So they're shutting down their operations. That also meant that at the same time, and still currently, you cannot flash a BLHeli32 ESC, because the flashing is based on verification to a remote server.
Yeah, so there's a couple key points that we need to make sure people understand before we sort of get into the editorializing, if you will. And one is that if you're running a BLHeli S ESC, this doesn't affect you. You can still flash BlueJay, you can flash BLHeli S. BLHeli S was open source its entire lifetime and still is, and there's no restriction on flashing it. BLHeli32 was closed source because basically, I mean, a little bit of history here. The BLHeli devs, I watched them for years and years and years on RC groups, which is how long ago this was. They worked on this software. The software was open source. And over time, more and more manufacturers started making ESCs with their software on it. And the manufacturers, you might think, well, how hard is it to make an ESC? But the manufacturers would come to the BLHeli devs and be like, hey, my ESC has a problem. Can you fix your firmware? Or my ESC has a hardware problem. Can you modify your firmware to work around my hardware problem so I don't have to throw out 10,000 ESCs? And basically, it became more and more of a demand on the time of the BLHeli devs. And I saw people, just normal people, say, hey, guys, I really appreciate the work you're doing. Can I donate to you guys? And they would say no. More than once I saw on RC groups, they turned down donations from the public and refused to accept them. And they said, we're not doing that. We're just giving this away for free. And then my read on the story is that at some point, the demands from the manufacturers got so large that they were like, we need to charge money for this. And rather than do the shitty thing and take their open source project and violate the GPL and like close source it, they did the right thing. They left that project out in the world and they started a brand new project, rewrote the whole thing from scratch, BLHeli32. It was closed source and it required you to go back to their server and validate your license before you could flash. Because what they did is every manufacturer who made a BLHeli32 ESC paid them a small amount of money per ESC. And they would validate those licenses to make sure they were getting their money.
$1.25 per ESC.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. So that brings us to the situation when you're today, which is that while their server is shut down, and it is presumably shut down forever, you can't flash any BLHeli32 ESCs at all. You can't do it, at least not with BLHeli32 firmware. It can't be done. So where do you want to take the editorializing?
Well,
like
I mean, the first thing I want to mention real quick is that, you know, there was a small amount of hope. There was a post and a long thread that happened. People obviously are upset, both manufacturers and users who want to be able to update and use the hardware that they purchased, including in some countries where in the EU where people are saying this is a violation of consumer rights and they're not allowed to just do this to a product they sold. So I don't know how any of that will shake out. But there was a big thread that we've linked, the GitHub link to, on the thread, and I've also got an imager here with the specific comment that I wanted to show.
Okay, so here's the long thread. Again, this is linked in the video description below. You can see discussions here. And the comment you specifically linked is where, Blunty?
The second image. The second. No. The second link there. There you go.
Got it.
So basically, Steven Skowig, I believe is his name, is the leader of the project, or has been for a long time, at least the face of the project. And this was 6 days after the letter was published, something like that. He says, we are very sorry for this current server operation interruption. We are working very hard to get the required clarifications to put it back in operation. So to me, this means two things. Well, it could mean two things, right? It depends on how you look at this whole thing, right? Because like you said, there's editorializing here, right? It's possible that everything they said is true. If everything they said in the letter is true, this is things that Norway is doing and they're worried about the issues, then it sounds like they're working with a lawyer or someone relevant to try to figure out how they can continue operation of the company without being under threat of being shut down or prosecuted by Norway's government. Right.
But they shut down sort of temporarily in order to make sure they weren't continuing to expose themselves to liability, potential liability.
Right. And I would say a message like this kind of leads to that, because why else would you lead on that, oh, it's possible we might be able to get going? Yeah. You didn't really appease anybody. Everybody's still angry, Right. So you're just giving false hope to somebody if it's not hope. So hopefully I'll just say, this is an indicator, even though it's been a month, that they are working in the background to attempt to try to fix things.
Yeah. And we hope that they can fix things because, today, all your BLHeli32 ESCs still work. You can still configure them and use them, but what you can't do is flash them. And that means that if you have a BLHeli32 firmware that has a bug in it And several of the latest releases had a bug. Not a bug that affects everybody or even maybe most people, but one of the bugs was that in very, very rare circumstances, the motor would just power up and spin up for no reason. And BLHeli32.10, the last version that was released before this happened, had some additional protection against the things that could cause that. Again, very rare, but if it happened to you, you would be pretty annoyed and you might want to be protected from that. Also, BLHeli32.9 has a bug where under some circumstances, when you disarm, the motor won't spin again until you power cycle, which if you have crashed somewhere where you can't retrieve, you're just screwed. You can't fly again. That's a big deal, and it's affecting more people and is a good reason to upgrade to 3210. And you can't do that today. So it's non-trivial that people can't flash them. And I think there's a very good question as to what they owe to their customers versus the threat to themselves. I mean, like, if they literally got a letter from the Norwegian government saying, we're going to throw you in jail and fine you 1 million kroner or whatever, unless you shut down right now, I don't blame them for shutting down and just leaving their customers high and dry. But on some level, I don't really believe that whatever threat they're responding to was that imminent or that dire. And it makes me wonder, just because I see other companies still in business who seem like they would have as much exposure as BLHeli or more. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about the landscape in Norway or what companies are operating currently in Norway, and what they would be servicing and who they're, you know what I mean? I just don't know anything about that landscape of things. All we know is what we're told, really. And for me, the way things have been handled and the response that we've seen so far, I think it's I don't know. It's possible that it's, they just got tired of doing it or for some reason want to get out, but crisis of conscience, whatever. But I think that, I don't know. I am willing to take them on their word. I just don't know that it doesn't really matter what we think or how we feel about it because
they've done it, right? And there's nothing we can do about it. Yeah, so we could be mad, but the question is, what do we do now? And I think for a lot of people, the answer to that question is keep using your ESCs. Like, you don't need to throw out your BLHeli32 ESCs. Like, you can keep using them. I have never run into any of these problems, and I have a lot of quads with BLHeli32 ESCs. If you're buying new ESCs today, maybe it makes sense to buy BLHeli S ESCs, 8-bit ESCs, and run BlueJay, because BLHeli32 ESCs are certainly could be at the end of their usable life.
As someone who has never cared about 32-bit and has always used 8-bit, nothing has changed for me. Like, I have never understood why anybody would buy 32-bit ESCs. So, do as you will.
More number,
but
bigger, better.
Me, yeah, this doesn't change anything to me. You know what I mean? Like, I think, and this doesn't change anything for most of the people in the hobby when they actually figure out, like, if you replaced your 32-bit ESC with an 8-bit ESC, you're going to see very little to no difference unless you're using by RPM or, scaling RPM, and then you're maybe see some difference in the way filters.
That's the big feature is
or something.
Is the variable PWM is the big feature. That and I don't use that by default, but there are some situations where it helps and improves things. So
we've also linked in the show notes your video that you did about this, where you talked about the shutdown, and then you also talked about AM32 and solutions for flashing that to a BLHeli32 AESC if it is, because these, like you said, you can't flash away from BLHeli32. You're locked into that bootloader. So you've got to replace it through some methods, and you've got documentation for that.
Yeah, so AM32 is a new open source. It's not actually that new. I interviewed the lead dev of AM32 a couple of years ago. His name, I think, is Pete Smits, I believe is his name. And at the time, it was just kind of a curiosity that this dude developed. It's an open source firmware that runs on BLHeli32 hardware. But the problem is that in order to flash it, you have to jump through some pretty crazy hoops. The good news is that if you jump through those hoops and flash it to your ESC, then everything is like it was. You can flash AM32 via the USB plug on your flight controller, via pass-through. You can configure it, etc. But it's not as mature as BLHeli32. There's not as much hardware support. Some ESCs just simply aren't supported, and other ESCs may be supported, but maybe aren't very tested, and therefore may have some quirks or maybe not optimal performance. Nevertheless, if you have a BLHeli32 ESC and you are desperate to get off BLHeli32 and onto an open source alternative, AM32 is the way. And as you said, Blunty, I have a tutorial for how to do that in the video description.
One question from chat. If an Meme FPV says that if an ESC gets replaced in a build and the new one has new firmware, will that require changes in Betaflight, or is it plug and play, completely stock ESC, for example? Especially a stock BLHeli32 ESC, you can replace that with no issue. You'll see 0 changes. Yeah. It's possible, like we were talking about, if you have some kind of scaling RPM filtering and you have very tight tunes based on the frequencies that your motors are outputting, and you're, you know what I mean, and you're relying on set bands of frequency tuning, then it is possible you will have some changes. But for most users, and you would know if you're one of those other users, for most users, you're going to be good to go.
Yeah. Okay. Most people are using 4-in-1s anyway. So if one ESC dies, they're all shot, pretty much.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So that's BLHeli32. Sad to see them go. You know, it's weird. More and more of the sort of staple companies that I sort of grew up with are going away. And, you know, time marches on. But it's kind of weird to see BLHeli32 just stop existing. But the other thing is, like, what does the future hold? And I think the future is that manufacturers will start selling AM32 ESCs. There's already a couple. And now that manufacturers can't, either that or manufacturers will find some way to crack the BLHeli32 bootloader and sell unlicensed BLHeli32 ESCs. But then there's no more development. So eventually that'll stop. I don't know.
I guess then one question I would have about that is, are we suggesting that the only reason we haven't seen open source 32-bit ESCs take over the market and most manufacturers adopt them is because they're just content? Is that the idea? Like they're content paying a license fee because they're paying a license fee, right? It's not free. It's not like they're just like, hey, I'm just going to make this ESC and it's the same as the BLHeli ESC. They're like, I'm going to make this 32-bit ESC. I'm going to pay more, and the customer's going to pay that difference. Yeah. Like, you would think you would want to go open source to compete and push down the price and get something competitive edge, all that kind of stuff, which we've seen a couple companies do, right?
I think BLHeli is more mature.
Sure.
That's for sure. BLHeli30. I think they were more comfortable with BLHeli32. I think the BLHeli32 devs worked with the manufacturers when there were issues, and I think they were very comfortable there. And the price wasn't that significant.
What I guess do you? Okay, a lot of questions all of a sudden. Do you think that? Why did it happen with receivers so easily, though? Like, what made ELRS so easy and ubiquitous for all these companies to hop on?
Because ELRS was
after the other after the other.
ELRS was so much better than it was better in performance. It was less expensive.
So
it was like
it probably wouldn't have taken over even with the price difference, you think, as ubiquitously. But because it's an improvement on everything, and it was better in many situations, and it was cheaper. It was sort of the thing that hit all the facets. Is that the idea?
I think so. And I think so. I think when you look at AM32 versus BLHeli32, AM32, like, obviously I don't have it on a bench, right? So I don't know if in some ways, I'm sure in some ways it's better and in some ways it's worse than BLHeli32. But like, you compare Express LRS to FreeSky and it just crushes it. Right. 1,000 times.
You know, we're like, hey, we're using the same tech. We figured out a strength of packets. We're getting you way more rates. We're getting you less latency. We're, you know, you can list out all these improvements that you can't do when you list out AM32, right? Yeah.
And AM32 is like, hey, it's cool the work you're doing over there, guys. Especially now that you're the only game in town. Thank God we had a contingency plan, you know. But at the end of the day, I don't think anyone looked from BLHeli32 over at AM32 and went, you know what, the bottom line, I just realized the real bottom line is AM32 never would have sold more ESCs. That's the bottom line from a manufacturer's point of view, isn't it? What's going to sell product? Express LRS was a recognizable, new, sexy, better, cheaper. But the bottom line, you say, hey, this is ELRS. And people are like, oh, I like that. I want that. If you say, hey, this is AM32, people will be like, what the fuck is AM32? Why is he not running BL32? Right? There was never that marketing moment behind it. And that's why manufacturers didn't pick it up at the end of the day.
All right.
All right.
The other thing we'll mention just real quick is that we've linked both AM32 and Escape32, which doesn't seem to be super heavily supported and appears to be by one guy, but it is the other 32-bit open source ESC option I'm aware of that does support all the features like bidirectional D-Shot and such.
I have to say that the dev of Escape32 commented on my AM32 video and responded to this whole, oh, it's a single dev. He was like, yeah, but if you look at the AM32 repo, like the main dev does like 98% of the work and everything else is cosmetic changes and like documentation. It's not actual code updates. He was like, AM32 is also a single dev project, basically. So I feel like that's, want to be fair to him.
All right.
Okay. But yeah, check out Escape32. Why not? You can flash back and forth. It doesn't matter. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's go to the next not at all controversial topic of the week, the DJI ban. The DJI ban.
Yes.
Where are we even going to start?
We're 30 minutes into the show. We're 30 minutes into the show. We're on story 3.
The next 30 minutes.
All right. So, basically, again, we've been gone for a month. It's gone crazy, even worse, and we've talked about it a little bit before we left, but the DJI ban is in all the news. Everybody's talking about it. The House passed it while we were gone, so that was a big part of the, I believe it was while we were gone. Anyway, so it's been a big part of the zeitgeist lately, and we wanted to clear up what it was, and this is a great article by Vic Moss of the DSPA, and he covers basically the truth, what we know about the rules, what he's heard directly from his chats on the Hill and in work groups, things like that. So there is actual useful information here. This isn't a fluff piece written like a lot of the other ones are. Yeah, I would say that. Okay. So, but the big takeaways here, things to know, right? Okay, the main act we're talking about when we talk about DJI ban is the CCP Drones Act. Okay, and basically, people are saying that DJI drones will be banned. That's not really what's going to happen. Like we talked about before, the FCC certification, the ability for them to certify new things with the FCC, which is the radio signals that you have to be certified with the FCC for people to use your devices without having a license to use your devices. And they're pulling the right for them to get new devices approved if this goes through with the Senate. And that's basically where we're at right now.
So that would include anything that needs an FCC license, including like wireless microphones, not just drones. And it definitely would include FPV components like whatever the successor to the G3 and the O3 Air unit are, which don't
anything
have FCC
with a
yet.
Yeah, anything with a transmitter in it needs to get the FCC certification to be usable. Okay. So just so you're clear about that, he also mentions here that, as good as it can be, he spent an hour on the phone with Stefanik, who pushed this bill.
He talked to Stefanik? Oh, the staffer.
Okay. The staffer. And the staffer says that their plan is not to pull any previous certs. It's not to ground any previous drones. It's not to attempt to brick anything. It's not an attempt to do any of that. It's just an attempt to stop all future DJI products from being FCC certified. Now, obviously, they're going to say whatever they want to say. We don't know. But at the same time, he says he doesn't have a reason to believe that's not true. Well, and if you think about the process based on what the history of this rule in the FCC is, it doesn't seem like this rule has ever been used to revoke a license, from what I can tell.
And also, the way that politics works is that first they'll say, no, we're not going to kick you in the balls. We're just going to slap you in the face. That's not so bad, is it? And you go, okay, I guess they're going to slap me in the face. And then like a year later, they're like, oh, by the way, now we're going to kick you in the balls. So like, yeah, today they're not going to, but who knows what the future will hold.
Sure. But hopefully it will need to come through not FCC action, but future administrative action that would need to go through the rulemaking process again and at least have a chance to be shot down, unlike the bundle with this bill. That's the idea. Okay. Next thing is just that nothing's going to be bricked. DJI is not going to brick anything voluntarily. Okay, that's not hard to know. We all know that. I don't think, DJI is not going to work with the federal government who banned them to then brick the devices that they sold to users in the United States.
Like, what's the threat? Hey, if you don't do what we want, we will completely ban you from our entire market. So, oh, wait, we already did that. Fuck, guys, what else do we have? So, your existing stuff will keep working. and according to the current understanding, will be legal to use.
Yes, correct. We like we said in the first section, we don't think they will revoke the FCC licenses, so it can remain legal to use for users.
All right.
Then the House passed the bill, so don't forget that doesn't mean anything. The Senate has to pass it, then it has to be signed. So there's other steps here. It does. We don't even know if the Senate NDAA has the language in it. It probably does, but we don't even know if it has the language in it. Then it's got to go to the Senate. Then it's got to be approved. Then it's got to be signed by the president. This all may happen. I think it's fairly likely to happen, but just so you know, everything's not over yet. The DJI ban hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
We talk about this only affecting DJI drones. In such a way as we talk about it, that's true. However, DJI has recruited these companies, essentially, Anzu and Specta, which are making DJI clone drones, which are actually DJI hardware. They've taken and sold DJI. Yes, they've sold DJI hardware under a license to companies Anzu and Specta, and they're going to be selling essentially Mavic Minis and similar drones, but as an Anzu Mini or a Specta Mini.
This is something we've seen happen. I'm going to struggle to think of a specific example, but when there is a question about a foreign company maybe not having the right interests aligned or some info security risk, one of the ways that's handled is to sort of sell or license that technology to a U.S.-based company so that only the U.S. government can have your information. But the idea is that as long as there is a U.S. entity sort of as the first line of defense, then everything is okay, right? And in this case, it seems explicitly like that won't work because it clearly says subsidiaries or affiliates thereof. And it seems like this approach, the DJI, I assume, is trying to do this to get ahead of this bill or other bills like it. And, I did think of an example, the TikTok. Didn't they say that TikTok had to be sold to a U.S. company, right? Yeah. They were like, hey, look, TikTok can exist, but we just want the servers to be in the U.S. and a U.S. entity to own it. And that's not going to work for DJI in this case because of this wording.
Right. Yeah, it looks like it won't. I mean, we don't know for sure, but I would guess that it probably will not work, and they will also be excluded from being able to get FCC approval for their devices.
Yeah, okay.
The next thing to know is this bill will not increase tariffs. That's the other bill. So there's a second bill that we've discussed before, the Drones for First Responders Act. Drones for First Responders Act is essentially, instead of banning anything to start, it just adds tariffs to drones. One thing you may not know is back in 2018, we were already applied a 25% tariff on a lot of Chinese products, including drones. They were included in that number.
So DJI drones are already more capable and less expensive than their American alternatives with a 25% tariff. Jesus.
That's correct. And basically, this bill would work at 5% a year up to 50% tariffs in 2029. Then it would tack on an additional $100 fee for each thing you purchase with a full outright ban in 2030. So it would actually ban all those drones were being purchased, not just with a tariff. One thing to note here from review and the people I'm talking to, again, none of us is a lawyer. And no lawyers want to go on record for free because that's how this works. But you might... As far as I can tell, the way the codes work for tax codes, this is only fully completed drones. So this would include bind and flies, DJI pre-builts, assembled sets and pieces of drones. Now, what that actually means to the government, how that will be filed, how you can get around that, how the tax codes are done by Chinese companies, I don't know any of that information, right? I don't work in any of those fields. I don't know any of those people. But just so you know, it should not be parts, and it may not be some sets of components.
Yeah. I also feel like clarifying something about how tariffs work. I've heard some people express the idea that if we put a tariff on a foreign product, then we make money. Our government makes money, as if the foreign country pays the tariff to get into like it's a door fee. Like if we put a 25% tariff on these Chinese drones, China's going to pay us so much money. That's not how tariffs work, right?
Yeah, you pay that.
The consumer, the U.S. consumer pays that. That money goes to, where does it go?
Now, of course, DJI, well, in this case, with the Drones
it goes to the government.
Act, Yes, but in this case, for drone first responders, it will go to first responders, firemen, and police, or something like that.
But
basically,
but just to finish that thought out, I want to make sure I've clarified this correctly. When there's a 25% tariff on a product, what happens is that product comes into the U.S. at $100. The consumer pays $125 for it. That extra $25 goes to the U.S. government. That's true. But that money's coming from the U.S. consumer. That is a tax on the U.S. consumer. And I have heard, I don't remember the source of the quote, but I was listening in the background on CNN or something, and someone was on TV and they were like, we're going to impose this tariff and we're going to make so much money off of China by putting tariffs on everything they import. And that is not how tariffs work. And that person doesn't understand or is willfully misrepresenting how tariffs work. Tariffs are a tax on the U.S. consumer, not the foreign country or the foreign manufacturer. Okay, so if anyone else didn't know that, I wanted to make sure that was clear. Go ahead.
All right. Well, yeah, that was it for. So yeah, just so you know, that's how the tariff system will work, and that's what the DFR, the Drones for First Responders Act is. It just adds tariffs onto all Chinese manufactured drones. Ones that already have tariffs currently, it just increases those tariffs and then bans them in 2030. That bill is should be next year or at least later this year where we have to worry about it. So just for now, we're only worrying about the DJI ban, which is the CCP Drones Act. And the rest of this article just discusses that security isn't really an issue because it's just happening now. This is more based on politics and timing.
The idea that this is like because DJI is going to do something nasty to us. Like if it was an imminent threat, then we would block them imminently, like we did with Huawei.
Yes.
Like the Huawei was like they were like, nope, no Huawei for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so it's a good article. I appreciate Vic Moss doing that. Please check it out if you want to read more in detail on what we talked about. And then the other thing I just want to mention here, you know, we talk about why things happen and things. I'm saying allegedly a lot of times, allegedly. But LinkedIn will tell you that Joe Bartlett, the director of federal policy at Skydio, used to be Elise Stefanik's aide. So it's very convenient that the person pushing the bill that would put Skydio and other companies into a great form and fashion and push out their competitors is also related to that aid. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Now there's a little bit of update on the DJI quote unquote ban. Next up, we have, oh man, what a world. Redcat. That's the company that owns Rotor Riot and Fat Shark. Well, actually, that's not even true. Redcat used to own them. Now Redcat basically sold them to itself under the name of Unusual Machines, but they're still owned. Jeff Thompson, the owner of Redcat, is also.
We gotta say allegedly. We did not. No? He did not sell them to themselves. They sold it to a new company called Unusual Machines.
Yeah, but Jeff Thompson is still the principal at both of those companies. That's fact, right?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think that's correct. Isn't it somebody else who went the principal at Unusual Machines? I don't remember.
Okay, fine. I could be wrong about that. I thought that was.
Can't say bad.
I thought I was right that Jeff Thompson.
Publicly traded companies.
I thought Jeff. Well, that should be a public freaking piece of information. Who the CEO? Of the company is.
I just don't have it available. So,
okay.
Alan Evans is the CEO.
Alan Evans is the vice president of Fat Shark, or was.
Yes.
So he's the CEO. Who is Jeff Thompson to Unusual Machines? I guarantee he's like on the. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Thank you for the correction.
Yes. Okay. So
Alan Evans became the vice president of Fat Shark to try and help Greg French. To help Greg French, Greg French, a great inventor and kind of bad at public relations. And so then he tried to shepherd Fat Shark, and then he eventually promoted to the vice CEO of Unusual Machines. It's all freaking just playing musical chairs. Got it.
All right. I don't know anything. Okay, so Redcat used to own Rotor Riot and Fat Shark and sold them. We talked about it a lot on the show because Redcat is a publicly traded company who owns FPV companies, and it's a large part of the industry, right? However, Redcat also owns Teal and other companies that were working to develop solutions for the military and the U.S. government. We thought, and from what we saw, Unusual Machines was divested and created to buy Redcat and Rotor Riot. That was our understanding of the process. And we thought it was for them to basically go into recreational, or light commercial, essentially. So like, let's sell to end users. Let's sell to the hobbyists and all those kind of things. Again, Redcat, Rotor Riot and Fat Shark. Obviously, those are companies who are typically targeted at the consumer market. However, this press release came out, and Unusual Machines has been selected to provide the first drone for Redcat's FAN line of first-person view lethal strike systems. So contrary to what we expected, what I thought I read in the documentation, but I clearly was wrong, is they are using them to create weapons for war, basically. And we thought it was going to be instead a split off. So we feel like you should know and be aware of what's happening over there at Unusual Machines, which is now Rotor Riot and Fat Shark.
That is fascinating. So wait, here's Unusual Machines and Redcat in the same press release. What is their corporate relationship?
They're different companies.
I know that.
They're different, completely different companies. They don't.
Yeah, but they're in the same. But Unusual Machines is talking about Redcat Holdings in Unusual Machines press release, so they have to have a relationship.
Right, because they were selected by Redcat to create this strike system. Redcat says, "Hey, we're going to hire Unusual Machines to make these," and that's what they did. They're a completely separate company as far as the law is concerned.
Oh yeah, sure.
And they were hired by Redcat.
It's like when I say I want a sandwich and then I hire my wife to make me a sandwich. Like, I went through a rigorous bidding process. It was a completely objective. It wasn't just like me going to myself and going, hey, I think I should make this. I don't care. Corporate shenanigans going to shenanigan. It doesn't matter. But yeah. What an amazing... They spun off this company and then hired them back. It's like when I quit my job and come back as a contractor, right?
Yeah, allegedly. So we don't... Yeah,
allegedly. Okay, great. Thank you for protecting us from getting sued. I don't think Redcat's going to sue me for some shit I say on the live stream. Allegedly. All right, so Redcat is making lethal strike systems. Should we? Oh, sorry, wrong scene. Should we show that?
I think the part that's interesting is really Rotor Riot and Fat Shark are creating lethal strike systems for Redcat. I think that's the more interesting thing to me. We're not saying Teal is doing this or another company. We're saying these two FPV focused companies that are on the consumer side are now working with their company to build.
Teal is already on the Blue UAS list. If Teal was like, hey, we're going to make military lethal drones, you'd be like, yeah, okay, makes sense. You're already going after the military contracts. But you're saying for Redcat and Fat Shark to be going at this direction is
Rotor Riot and Fat Shark.
I'm sorry, Rotor Riot. Thank you. I misspoke. Rotor Riot and Fat Shark to be going this direction is notable.
I think it is notable, at least for us to be aware as consumers, to know what we're doing with our money. So,
yeah. What do you mean? You think? I mean, are you insinuating that people might not want to buy from Rotor Riot because of this?
100%. In Fat Shark, yeah, of course.
Interesting. I mean, I know that's true because I've seen some of the comments on the Redcat video. Do we want to show the Redcat video? I showed it on. The Redcat put this video out on their YouTube page. I'm not going to play the audio because I already got a copy strike for it. Hold on, let me mute this real quick. Okay, so you can't hear the hello. You can't hear the audio, so you can't hear what the people are saying. Oh, that's the Redcat overview. I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Redcat Holdings is the where's the welcome to the family.
That'd be the first one.
This is the one. Yeah. So Redcat put this video out. And by the way, this is not Redcat RC, the company that makes RC cars. It is a different company with an unfortunately similar name. One of these days, someone is going to sue someone over this because it's been very confusing. But yeah, Redcat released this video with this clear target at like military, lethal, etc. And then like FPV hobbyists are like, including good old Bot Grinder came out of the woodwork, of course, to say his thoughts about it. And I'm like, yeah, definitely there will be people. I mean, let's face it, Bot Grinder wasn't buying anything from Rotor Riot anyway, but there definitely are people who are going to be annoyed about this direction. I don't know. There are also people who aren't annoyed. They're like, well, you know, who cares? What do you expect?
Yep.
I don't know. Oh my God. People are so stupid. People are so stupid. Jesus Christ.
All right, let's. We can't read YouTube comments. This is a bad.
Oh, I
thing
should.
to do.
Damn right I can. Okay. All right, moving on. New product from TBS. Is TBS still in
Yes.
business? Wow.
Apparently. But TBS has been on the back burner for a while. I believe Trappy had some health issues and they went through some company changes and moving. I think they moved to warehouse and stuff.
Yeah.
But they've launched
There was
some
a
new
big
products.
conflict with one of their owners. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So, they've launched some new products, and most notably, TBS has decided on a new stack mounting pattern.
What? Shut up.
Okay, so you're going to see that they understand
20 by 20.
this is going to. Right. So that's how they come. However, you can buy a Gorilla adapter, TBS Gorilla adapter. So if you scroll down a little farther, it'll show you. I think some of these come with the Gorilla adapter now, but if you scroll down, that's one of the products, the TBS Gorilla adapter. And this will adapt your stack to the Gorilla mount. Gorilla mount is 39.5 by 16.
Hello. Oh, interesting. The idea being that you can have a bigger ESC and still fit it inside the frame? What's the idea here?
I mean, they say that, I don't know, the copy is weird. The copy says, when looking at the flight stacks, we couldn't help but notice that there are stack mounting screws obstructing our beautiful ESC design.
Okay.
I don't know.
So
I think this is just...
You've seen this kind of thing before, like with the Diatone Race ESC, where the ESC is a 20 by 20, but all the board space is taken up by FETs, and so they put like mounting lugs in the heatsink, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing you've seen before.
Right.
Oh, they're using AM32 as well. Very nice. So, if you want to use this ESC, then you need a frame that's, well, it doesn't have to support the new mounting standard, but it does have to fit the new longer ESC. 39.5.
Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of these are going to fit, like the ESC that they've got, the 6S ESC is Gorilla mount and then ships with brackets. But like the FC, is a normal mounting on the FC. Like they haven't transitioned all the products yet. And I think one of the comments on the Facebook was like, we understand that people are going to want to use these for multiple things and not have like locked away hardware and that sort of thing. But to me, like, I really don't understand the point of this. Like, why are we going to make more holes and more frames that aren't compatible with the rest of everything? Like, you're not actually.
These frames are. Someone's going to release a frame that only has the Gorilla mounting standard, and it cannot mount a 30 by 30 or a 20 by 20, and then that's going to lock you in there.
Well, they have an adapter to go down to 30 by 30 and 20 by 20 from the.
No, I'm
Gorilla
saying
mount.
a frame with only Gorilla mounting holes, though, so you cannot use a 30 by 30 ESC on the frame. The adapter goes from Gorilla to 30 by 30. I guess you could put the 30 by 30 ESC in the Gorilla adapter, but that's kind of silly.
Yeah, it goes the other way too. Backwards compatibility for the new TBS Lucid Flight Stack on any 20 by 20 compatible frame. So it'll go the other way too.
I mean,
right.
Someone's going to release a frame that doesn't have 20 by 20 or 30 by 30 holes, that only has Gorilla holes. At which point, if you want to use any other ESC, you're not going to do it because it'll be a pain in the ass.
Okay, I can't imagine anybody would launch a frame with only Gorilla holes except TBS, right?
Oh, I said somebody.
Nobody's going to make only Gorilla holes. This is a niche thing that TBS is the only ones who will ever support.
Yeah,
right?
and
like,
TBS will release a frame that locks you into their hardware. No,
yes,
I'm sorry.
Only TBS, and nobody.
They
will
won't.
buy
They
it
won't
it's
do
a
that.
TBS
They won't do
frame.
that. I'm just saying someone would do. Yeah. Anyway, never mind.
Yeah.
TBS made the source one. It's open source. It's good for everybody. It's the opposite of locking you in. That's I take it back. I take it back.
I just see 0 point in this. It's only going to make.
What's the real reason behind this? What's the real reason?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Interesting. I mean, interesting. Yeah.
My 2 cents is that if you introduce a new standard, it better solve a problem, and this doesn't solve a problem. So.
Well, it solves the problem. The problem. It solves the problem. Let me see if I can find a picture of it. Yeah, so it solves the problem that this ESC has, the Diatone Mamba Race, which is you want a compact 20mm ESC, and you want to use big FETs that aren't going to frickin' blow up. So you can see this is basically the same thing, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if this is exactly 39mm, but they've done basically the same thing here with this ESC, right? They've just built the 20mm mounting into the heatsink. But this is kind of the same thing as the Gorilla mount, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of. Absolutely. But they've not assumed that anybody would ever want to use their weird shape, and they've put it to a normal shape.
Yeah. And you don't have to have some bulky metal adapter that's going to take up space in your stack, space in your build, etc. But, I mean, honestly, if this... What's the dimension of this ESC? What if it's like 39mm? It's not going to have the dimensions, damn. Like, probably if this ESC fits in your frame, then so will the TBS Gorilla. So, interesting. All right. Yes. Well, there you go. Interesting TBS, as always. TBS always shaking things up. Never boring, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, Blunty, we got to pause for a second. We got a $50 super chat come in, and normally we hold super chats till the end of the stream, but with a $50 super chat, that's a big-ass super chat. So thank you to... Oh, I don't see it in the super chats. That sucks. Well, thank you to the $50 super chat that came in. I don't know why I don't see it anymore. There it is. From T-Rex. Thank you for fireworks money, T-Rex. Happy 4th of July, everyone. And thank you for that. As well, thank you to Limon, Ivan Efimov, a friend of the channel and YouTube creator in his own right, as well as a hell of a drone pilot. Breaking news, he says, West Coast Throwdown just finished and a pro-class freestyle event won by a racer, Bike Guy. It was a super fun event. Limon got first in Street Leg. Speaking of yourself, in the third person, third person. And T-Dog first in open class. Shocker, a racing guy won a freestyle event. Who could have seen that coming? Racing guys always do good at freestyle. Okay, so may as well get the last other couple super chats out of the way as long as I'm doing it. We're practically at the top of the hour, but we're going to keep going. Mike Bundy, thank you for a $10 super chat. Prop Spalter, thank you for 2 Swiss francs. And DCDK, thank you for 20 Danish kroner, my bad. Oh, Switzerland and Sweden, Denmark and Dutch, the Netherlands. I know the difference, but my brain doesn't always know the difference. Okay. Continuing on, Blunty, with our next story.
All right. Next up, we're going to take a break from the heavy stories, and we're going to go to the cinematic of the week. And I'm going to hype this one a little bit by saying this is the cinematic of the year.
Wow. You're kidding me.
And I think you should try to watch this if you could do the mute thing where you mute it for the stream, but you hear the audio.
So normally we don't play the audio on stream because we don't want to get copy strike. But Blunty, you're telling me that the audio is like synced to the beat and it's very important. I'm not going to play it on the stream. I'm going to listen to it, and you guys aren't going to hear it. And if you want to hear it, you should go to the creator's page and watch the video and give them a view. They currently have 11,000 views. Well worth giving them a few more.
This video, if one of the big creators, like the actual big vloggers or whatever, posted this to their channel, this would have millions of views. This is
okay,
100%.
This is Nicholas Gaillard, and there's a link in the video description if you want to check it out. I'm going to mute the audio, but I will hear it, and you will get to hear my reaction to it as well as watch it. We're not going to watch the whole thing either, because again, I want you guys to go give him the hits. Here we go. It's kind of oldie-fashioned music. Great flying. Wow. Wow. That was tight. That was a tight orbit, buddy. Wow. Oh, I wish that shot was longer. Woo. Oh, nice crossfade. Wow. Okay, it sounds French. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but sorry, French people. Wow. Dude. I don't... Oh, shut the hell up. Whoa, shut the hell up. Wow. That was great. That was a great transition. Wow. Okay, I have to stop. I'm halfway through. I want to watch the whole thing. But I'm not going to do that to the creator and just react, quote unquote, react to his whole video. If you guys want to see the rest of this video, and you definitely want to hear the music, even though it's in French, then you should go to the link in the video description. It's great. Oh, no, it's the French language. Sorry. Sorry, couldn't resist taking a dig at the French. Well done, Nicolas Gaillard. Oh no, Nicolas Gaillard. He's probably French. I'm so sorry, Nicolas. It sucks that you. It's really unfortunate that you were born French. What can we say? You seem like a decent person despite that. Oh shit, I muted you. I'm sorry. You're unmuted now. No one heard what you said.
Fair enough.
Do you want to repeat your defense of the French so that people can know that you're not with me on this?
Yeah, I was just trying to say that I don't share the views of the French people or French language. So.
I'm just talking shit. Please don't take it personally. Anyone out there who is French.
All right. Next up, we've got our other cinematic sort of thing of the week, a video of the week. And we want to let you know, as I said before, I love documentaries. I love when people take you into something. You get to experience a part of it. You get to go through the process, understand what it's like. And I think it's so important to have those kind of things in FPV so that we can have other people experience the FPV vicariously. And you can too if you're not a racer, because this is MultiGP Chase the Ace documentary, and this is a wonderful documentary put together by MultiGP about Chase the Ace, about the championships and how everything goes and how the flight lines are and the drama between pilots and everything. It takes you through. It's over an hour, and it's an excellent documentary that goes through and shows the whole process and kind of it follows the whole thing. I think it's really important to have this kind of stuff, and I love this documentary.
Wow. Yeah, I'm digging it already. We're not playing again any of the audio for the reasons previously mentioned. I always like things that bring the world of FPV to the wider world for people who maybe don't participate in FPV. I don't know how many people who aren't in FPV are going to watch this, but anytime the feel and the spirit of an FPV competition is captured on screen, I really love it. This looks so good. Woo! Right? Oh, smoke! I saw smoke! So this is, again, linked in the video description below. It's on the MultiGP website. Only has 9,000 views. It certainly deserves more. Go check it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Gives me all the warm fuzzies there. All the warm fuzzies.
Speaking of MultiGP, we've also got events to tell you about, and our first event is a MultiGP event, the Prospec Kickoff and the Prospec 7-inch class. And we're going to tell you, so MultiGP has announced a new Prospec 7-inch class. We talked before about their issues with Street League, and they kind of split off with Street League and mutually went their separate ways. MultiGP Prospec has been assigned, and they've gotten their own version of the the different spec features. So if you check the other, I've got another link in the in there just above that goes over the spec. If you want to pull it up real quick for me.
Where's that?
Oh, okay. That might have been it
I
as
think
well.
this is it.
Yeah.
right here. So to participate, you need a MultiGP Pro Stock frame or $399 practice rig. So that it's locked into 2 frames.
Yes, and I think I heard that they're trying to get other frames approved, essentially. Like they're going to try to get other frames like on the list over time, but I believe those are the only ones current. Also, they haven't set like a specific battery. It's just 2200 milliamp 6S or less, and the battery weight is 400 grams. Stator volume the same or less than 2808, so little room on the motors for you to choose. They announce a prop before the race, and then they have RPM limiter obviously in beta flight. It seems like
whatever KV you end up going with, there's going to be an RPM limiter anyway, so there's going to be some limitation across the board.
Correct. And it seems like it's fairly loose, a HD0 analog. You just gotta have the beta flight build. So I'm interested to see how everybody kind of falls into this and where people feel about this, like building cost of this versus Street League or other options, how much this will be flown, who will adopt the spec, that sort of thing. I think there's a lot of questions with Street League still being prevalent, just not in MultiGP, so.
Yeah. It's really, I have to say, I mean, I support Prospec, I support MultiGP, the more the merrier. I think it's really unfortunate that MultiGP and Street League had this falling out. I'm not going to get into the drama of the falling out. It is what it is, and it's between them. But I think it was such a match made in heaven that the leading 7-inch spec class, the only 7-inch spec class, really. If there's another one, I apologize. I don't know about it. Teaming up with definitely the leading racing league. It was so perfect. And now we have 2 7-inch spec classes, and I'm not even sure if they're cross-compatible. Like, you have to use one of the Prospec frames. Is that Prospec frame legal in Street League? Like, could you take your Prospec racer and go race Street League? I think the answer is no. I don't remember the details, but I actually talked about this with someone, and I think there's a reason why today, at least, the answer is no.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, like, if you wanted to race 7-inch spec racing, you would need 2 separate birds, and that's just a shame, because anything that gets more people racing is good, and anything that gets in the way of people racing is bad. That's it. Eric Toft points out Street League requires open source frames, and the Prospec frame is not open source. And for whatever reason, they don't want to open source it.
What is that practice rig? Is that open source?
I don't know about that. I think I'm not sure, but I think the answer is no. Because the person I was talking to was like, no, sorry, you wouldn't be able to. Gotcha. You wouldn't be able to build one rig and use it in both of them. So.
Gotcha.
So I wish the best of success to everybody, but also I'm a little bit sad that it didn't work out in a way that's better for the pilots.
Yeah, I think so part of this is that their first race is August 9th or 10th. 9th and 10th in Bonner Springs, KC, and we'll kind of see how the first race goes, how the adoption of the race is, who shows up, like what people feel about it, and how it places in the lineup. Because to be honest, we used to have another 7-inch spec, I don't know, called DRL.
DRL,
and they're not really flying those live anymore. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where these two fit together. Yeah.
Vanover's coming out of retirement. Vanover retired from racing. I didn't even know that. I just thought he got busy being a rock star and didn't really, hanging out with Michael Bay, and I didn't realize it was official that he had retired. And now apparently he's coming out of retirement to race Prospec, so that's cool.
All right.
Okay.
All right, and we got one more event we want to tell you about, which is Quadmafia Palooza.
Quadmafia Palooza. Okay.
Yeah, if you're in Illinois, you might want to check it out. July 20th and the 21st in Wing Park in Elgin, Illinois. You can hang out with Wrecked, Turtle Mode FPV, Fly FPV, a bunch of the guys for FPV Palooza.
Is that a beer garden? I like beer gardens. I like beer.
Yeah, they've got a meet and greet, I think, a hangout at the beer garden, and then they've got a fly at the Wing Park. I think is kind of the plan there.
Gotcha. So you get your buzz on and then go fly. Understood. By the way, I also like
the FAA, so the FAA is aware of different days.
Oh, Yeah, okay, that's real important. I would also like to say I also like FPV, but you know, it's not often you see an FPV race interlinked with it. One of my favorite races ever was a whoop race that was held at this restaurant and bar. It was in like the back room of the restaurant. This big stage area with a stage, and then there were just tables down on the floor. This giant room. You could just get some mozzarella sticks and a beer, go race your whoop. It was all indoors, so the FAA no big deal. Great thing. It was great. Anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
just reminiscing.
All good.
All right.
All right.
Next up.
Real quick reminder, if you have an event or anything else that we need to show in the news that's not here, it may have been cut for time this week, though I tried to get everything in that I felt was relevant or timely. If we missed your event, then obviously we're not going to advertise it after the fact. Email news@fpvknowitall.com, down there in the corner, every show down there in the corner over there for you. Yeah. So, yeah, email us with any news or anything you want to announce. Next up, PIDToolbox has been an open source program for a long time. Still remains open source, but PIDToolbox has now gone pro. PIDToolbox Pro is now a paid service, and I believe that future development will be put into PIDToolbox Pro, or at least that's my understanding of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you can now sign
So
up
they've
for
got the
$5.50
standard
a month.
software and then the pro firm software. And the pro software will have more features and more development and be paid.
Yes. It does. The way he has it listed is that you get download access for $250 for the regular, and Pro is $550. However, the original GitHub is obviously still up. The project didn't get pulled down. So I believe all future development is on paid versions.
There you go.
Right.
So is the future development also open source?
No.
Has he closed sourced it?
He's closed sourced it. This is the GitHub says this is the last release that will be posted on GitHub. Newer versions available here, and that links to the Patreon.
In the past, when an open source project has gone closed source and commercial, there have been some uproar from people. But I know that there are ways in the open source licensing to do that. Can we comment on whether he's done it in kind of a kosher way or whether it's kind of a sleazy money grab sort of a thing? Do you know what I'm saying? Like the GPL would require you to like get consent from every single person who ever did a commit or something like that. And for large projects, it's basically impossible to take them closed source without. And then if they have any code in them from a GPL project, then they have to stay open source and yada, yada, yada. Do we know anything about this?
I do not. I don't have any idea. And I don't think we have any idea whether to know that he wrote it or not. You know what I mean? How would we know any of that? So I don't have any idea. I
suppose then we'll give the benefit of the doubt that it's been done in a way that is kosher and compliant with the license. But anytime I hear about an open source project going closed source and commercial, my little radar goes off. And I'm like, oh, somebody violating an open source license. We wouldn't want that. Yeah.
Anyway. I just don't know how we would ever know what closed source code looked like, right? To know that they were doing it.
I mean, we could look at the open source license and see what provisions it was under. Like if it's GPL.
But we don't know if he rewrote it or not. But how do we know he didn't rewrite it?
Well, he could just say. He could say. I mean, he probably didn't rewrite it.
Okay.
But then there are some open source licenses that would allow it to go closed source commercial without an issue. So I don't know. It just occurred to me to ask. Anyway, PIDToolbox is hands down one of the best tools, maybe the best tool for doing PID tuning on Betaflight and other similar flight controllers. And Brian White has been doing this development for a long freaking time at no charge. So, more power to him that he decides he wants to make a little money on this. Kudos to him for that. Okay, moving on.
All right. Next up, Straw Hat Sam. Some of you might be familiar with Straw Hat Sam from the Le Pigeon and some different Blackmagic Pocket 4K converters that he did, all kinds of different things that we saw from Straw Hat Sam. Unfortunately, Straw Hat Sam has shut down. He's gone to do better things. He's going to go be an engineer and go do stuff Yeah, basically he's got his own business stuff he's going to go take care of, and he's giving away all these models for free. So if you wanted any of his models or information, he's got them up on GrabCAD, and we've got a link in the show notes, so you can go get the models for his prints and different things.
So he made a ton of Cinelifter frames, among other things. And really cool little cinema related. Hello, go back. No, can I go back? There we go. Adapters, like here's a really cool little adapter that puts a GoPro on front of a dummy red Komodo, so you can fly your Cinelifter and like, you know, see how it flies and get shots without putting your Komodo in the air. Parts for the Le Pigeon frame. All of this stuff is up on GrabCAD, and if you have the means to cut carbon, you can just make your own for free. Well, for the cost of the carbon and the cat and the machine, you know. But, you know, a lot of people would have said, you know, F you, I'm taking this to the grave with me. But he's like, you know, I'm going on to different things. I'll give this to the world. And it's very cool that he did that. Sorry to see that he's not able to continue to make a living building these things. But very, very nice that he made this move.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Next up, I think this is one of the coolest things. I don't know. This is really cool. I haven't seen tech like this, and it may just be because I don't use thermal setups.
Me neither.
But one of the problems that you have with thermal setups, or at least that I've seen with thermal setups when I watch them, is you see somebody and they've got the thermal image, and then they've got to switch back to the real image, and they've got to switch back to the thermal image, and they've got to switch back to the real image.
Yep.
Well, as you can see here, this is a built-in sensor into an FPV camera that allows this box to be scalable. So you can use a switch and change the heat. So what you're doing is you're taking all the cold and making it real image.
Right.
So only the heat remains highlighted, but the cold is the real image. So you can locate things and figure out what things are by simply moving a meter up and down, a dial up and down.
Yeah, very cool. Now, I've seen this video before. The way that it works, do you actually turn a knob to change the threshold for where the real versus the thermal is?
That is my understanding, yes.
Here we can see that the shadows are regular color and the hot spots are thermal color.
Yeah, he's got a bar on the right that shows
Oh, okay.
that bar moves up as he goes away to the real image, basically.
So you've like got a PWM input into the camera that's changing the threshold in real time.
Yes.
Or something like that.
And basically, you use it to find, and you could flip it. You see how he flipped it. So now the cold is shown and the hot is exposed, right?
Wow. That's freaking cool. And there are various profiles there. Yeah, how much is it?
This is not cheap. You can see the update rate is pretty good, and you know, and the quality is pretty good for what you're getting.
It's $1,000.
But that's pretty standard, and I don't think the normal IR cams can do this. You know,
no, they can't do dual mode. That's pretty slick.
Yeah, I think if you're not really worried about resolution, you're trying to find things with thermal images, and you are not trying to spend like $5 to $10 grand. I think this is a really neat option for people.
That's really cool. I'm sorry it's $1,000. That may be a fair price, or €1,000. Same thing, right? That's pretty fucking cool, though.
Yeah. The only cheaper we've seen is the CVBS cameras that, who was that? Speedy Bee? Who put those out? Got announced.
Foxeer, I think.
Foxeer, that's right. But however, those obviously don't have the double modes. You know, they can't do the scale up and down. Like you're paying for the feature plus the ability to do thermal plus the FPS. You know, like you're getting a bunch of that package, I think. And I think it's really cool that it's also in a box in the image. So there's like, you can move it up to the left, you can move it in the center, you can change the size of it. I think it's just really neat, and I think it's a good piece of tech that everybody should be aware of if you're doing stuff with thermal.
Yeah, very, very cool. Okay, well, that brings us finally to the last segment of the stream.
That's true.
It's barely news. Before we get into It's Barely News, let's just see if we have any more super chats. We've got one here from Shane Hale. Thank you, Shane, for a $10 super chat. You, Bot, and JC Project Blue Falcon, RIP, were the reason I'm not Catholic. I don't know why I did that. Were the reason I got into FPV. My bucket list is to fly with you guys. Are you coming to Castle Crash? I am not coming to Castle Crash. I unfortunately am having a very jam-packed year, and I don't have a lot of spare time for FPV events this year. Unfortunately, I didn't go to Rampage, if you can believe that. So very, very tempting, but unfortunately no. So that's it. That's the last super chat. So we're caught up on super
All
chats.
right.
Let's go to It's Barely News. These are news stories that we don't got a lot to say about or add to. We just thought you'd think it was cool to go like, oh, there you go. So,
Yeah.
what's the first one?
First one is from somebody you brought up earlier in the stream. Limon FPV has made a video.
That guy? Oh.
Yeah, he made a video right after we left about how to put a flight controller onto your MT12 or other radio and use it for motion control, like a DJI motion controller.
Uh-huh. Like, so you can see here, he is controlling his drone's roll axis by tilting his hand, and he's controlling the pitch axis by tilting his hand forward and back.
I think he's doing pitch and roll. I think he said you could do partial yaw too.
Yeah. Now, Blunty, you have linked to the Radiomaster gyro control module, and that's true. That is a thing that you could use to do what he's doing. But this is cooler than it seems like, because Limon, he was like, hey, a flight controller has a gyro and accelerometer on it. Why don't we just make custom firmware for the flight controller that turns it into a motion tracker? And so that's like, there are already open source motion trackers out there. They exist. But this lets you just take out any old flight controller that you already own and just boom, turn it into a head tracker or motion tracker. And that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. So, yeah. Yeah. Just set up the resources. One key is that it does output S-Bus, not PPM, which may affect your project. But very slick.
Yep.
I'm being told that was an airplane, not a drone. So it was yeah. Okay. What's next, Blunty?
Next up, in the drones delivering things kind of category, Amazon Prime Air has gotten the approval to fly farther under BVLOS, beyond visual line of sight. This kind of comes after they just shut down one of their two remaining Prime Air hubs and then opened a new one in Arizona. So yeah, we just wanted to let you know that they're still trying. They've really gutted the heck out of their Prime Air division. They are trying to introduce a new model of drone, and they are trying to go to new areas and do longer distances, and they still have goals like 500,000 packages delivered by the end of next year or something. I don't know. I just like, this has been going so bad for them compared to the other competitors. I'm just like really shocked that they're continuing to push it, but it seems much in the way of like Google, similar to like Google does. They'll just push it, and then suddenly this will die, which is kind of what I expect.
Yeah. Can I throw in another piece of drone delivery related news, Blunty?
Sure.
Walmart also doing drone delivery. Florida man shot Walmart drone because he, quote, thought it was watching him. That looks like the kind of guy who would shoot a drone. Definitely. Yep. And he's from Florida, of course. Ooh, shot the drone with a handgun. Impressive there. Oh, it still made it back home. That's cool. Caused $2,500 worth of damage to the payload system, though. He thought the operators were watching him. Yeah. I fired one round at it, he said. They say I hit it, so I must be a good shot, or else it's not that far away. I'm going to wind up having to find a real good defense lawyer. God damn. Welcome to America.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Blunty, why is this story in It's Barely News? You would think that a brand new battery connector for 1S, like little tiny whoop batteries, would be way more than barely news. This is like big news, isn't it?
I don't care about it. That's why it's here. I mean, it's another connector. As far as I know, A30 is also usable by anybody, but for some reason they've launched EM2, which is also usable by anybody. They say it's open source.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's another connector. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse, but as far as I know, we already have 2 of these. Beta FPV doesn't allow other people to use them, but as far as I know, the A30 is usable by other companies. So
yeah. Maybe I'm
wrong.
Why is this better? So Emacs, first of all, good for you, right? Good for you. You know, making moves, right? Never going to criticize you for that. But here's the thing. Why would anyone buy this? Number one, can you buy batteries with this A30 or this new, what is it, EM 2.0 connector on it? If no, then stop. Do not proceed. There's no point. The reason BT 2.0 became as successful as it was, well, it was better than PH 2.0 for sure, and it got to battery manufacturers. Because having to convert from PH 2.0 to BT 2.0 negates the advantage of the BT 2.0. And these days, if you buy a BT 2.0 battery, you can plug it into an A30 connector. Sorry, is it the other way? Which is it? Fuck. You buy a PH 2.0 battery and you plug it into an A30 connector on the drone, and you're also good to go. There aren't many batteries with A30 connectors on them, but they are coming out. So the bottom line is, until we can buy batteries with an EM 2.0 connector on them, no one should put an EM 2.0 connector on their quad, because you'd have to use an adapter to do it, and no one should do that. So, I don't know.
Yep.
All right. Like, I understand people want to move away from BT 2.0 because you have to pay a licensing fee to not Beta Flight, Beta FPV, right? But A30 already has momentum. This needs to be better than A30. There's a notch. So there's a notch that stops it one way, but not the other way. And I can't remember. The quad side has a notch. No. You 1,000% can plug a BT 2.0 battery into an A30 connector on a drone. I have done it. Well, here you go. A30 connector. A30 connector on this drone. Take my word for it if you don't believe me. Hold on. BT 2.0 connector on this battery. Ready? Let's see. Oh, there is a notch. There's a little tab there. Oh, I'm sorry. That's an A30 connector. Fuck. Okay, never mind. Yeah, BT 2.0. It'll plug in, I assure you. Now I've started shooting off my mouth. I have to finish the... Okay.
This is
BT 2.0, A30. Oh my God! Oh, that notch didn't stop me from plugging it in. Look, I plugged it in. Yeah.
Okay.
Good use of our time. I know. What's next, Blunty?
All right. Last story is that there was a man that was lost for 10 days. He was rescued using a drone. We figured we would finish off with a drone rescue story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a dog one this time, but I do have a man one who...
Well, humans are also... They're not as cute as dogs, but...
So yeah, this guy was gone for 10 days without food or supplies, but they were able to find him with the drone. And this is just to highlight, obviously there's a lot of these cases where you wouldn't find people like this without a drone. So
yeah. He started shouting. After 10 days, he was like, you know what? I think I'm going to start shouting. I don't think I'm going to get rescued. He was like, yeah, I'm out here. And then somebody was like, hey, have you been there the whole time? I bet if he felt dumb, he didn't start shouting at 5 days.
All right.
All right. Well, We do have one more super chat. Sometimes I can just hear you shaking your head on the other side of the camera. Yaros Mallorca, thank you for 10 euros. DJI is releasing an e-bike tomorrow. It seems to be a high-end bike, not something I expected from DJI. Is it related to the ban? What are your thoughts? I have no thoughts. I don't know why it would be related to the ban.
It's not on the news because it's not related. That's
Yeah.
why.
I don't know why it would be related to the ban, though. All right, guys. That's going to do it. We're back. Yay. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye.
We're out of here.